Is everybody in?
Not yet.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, everybody that is attempting to be in the room looks like they're in the room. So you may
Very good.
proceed.
I will call this meeting to order. We will start with the pledge to the flag. I'm going to ask Chief Riley if he will lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. I'll ask my clerk.
Councilor Whitesandel?
Here.
Councilor Wanunu?
Yeah.
Councilor Rosman?
Here.
Deputy Supervisor Charles? Here. Supervisor Smith?
Here. We'll start with public participation. Whoever wishes to speak, please do so at this time. We'll ask you, as always, to state your name and address and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less in duration. We'll start with the people present in the room. Is there anyone present? Mr. Romanowski.
Robert Romanowski, 183 Maple Avenue, Muncie. I just have a couple questions on a couple items on the agenda. First, there's 4E, a pilot agreement. It doesn't say in the resolution where this property is. It has the legal information where it is, but there's really no address there to make it easier for people to find out where this property is. Also, under purchasing, the town is purchasing a new or used transit van. The resolution doesn't say the reason that the van is needed, or if the van that you're purchasing for around $63,000 is new or used. Those questions could be answered. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think when we get to those items, we'll discuss those issues. Anybody else who's present in the audience wishes to speak?
Good evening. My name is Sarah Shriver. I live at 1 Leah Court in Ramapo. 1 Leah Court. I live with my husband Stephen, who also plans to speak, and our daughter. I'm here tonight to bring to the council's attention an incident which took place to my family to ensure it does not happen to any other family living in Ramapo. On Friday, May 6th, Stephen and I ended up in a verbal exchange with our neighbors over the loud music they were playing. At one point, the neighbors, who were irate with us for requesting they lower their music, pointed to our front lawn and told us, "We've got the people of Palestine coming for you. They'll be here tomorrow." I have this exchange captured on video. We called Ramapo police to report what we, visibly Jewish people, considered a threat, and were treated with complete disrespect and hostility by the officers who responded. My husband will tell you more about what transpired between us and the officers when he speaks. Recording in progress. I asked several times.
Sorry, just 1 second. Yeah, right. Go ahead.
I asked several times of the officers to make sure that the threatening words were included in the police report, and was assured no less than 3 times that it was. We retrieved the police report from records, and not one mention of it appears in the report. I asked for a patrol car to drive by my home on the Sabbath. I was told one more word from me and I would risk arrest. When we went back into our home, we watched and have footage of these officers standing around and laughing with the same people who had made the threat to us. These officers could have very easily come back to us and said, "We spoke to your neighbors about what they said, and it was just words said in the heat of the moment. You have nothing to be concerned about." That would have been half the problem. Instead, we spent the entire Sabbath looking out the window and over our shoulder, convincing ourselves nothing was going to happen, but wondering if that was a false sense of security. It crossed my mind several times this past Sabbath as well, since there has been no follow-through or follow-up by Ramapo police as to the credibility of the threat, because once again, it went unreported, despite the several assurances that it would be included in the police report. No one should be made to feel unsafe in their home, and citizens of Ramapo should be able to know that their police are listening and accurately reporting.
My name is Stephen Shriver from 1 Leah Court, which is unincorporated Ramapo with Pomona. I'd like to add to what my wife said. When I told the officer of the threat, his first reaction was that it was no big deal. I tried to explain why telling a Jewish person that a group of Palestinians would be on his front lawn was terrifying when anti-Semitic attacks are at an all-time high. He shrugged me off and said, "Stop with that nonsense." When I asked if the officers would like to view the video footage, they refused. Prior to this, we have had only positive interactions with the brave men and women of the Ramapo Police Department, which is why this is so shocking. we will be filing formal complaints against the officers involved, but felt it necessary to inform the council of this matter as well. I'm on the board of my synagogue, which recently submitted an application for the state security clearance. One of the requested documents to determine if funding was necessary was that all police reports of anti-Semitic incidents within a certain radius of the shul would be provided. What happened to my wife and me appears on no police report, despite assurances it would be. How many others have gone unreported as well? There should be zero tolerance on behalf of the police for hate speech and anti-Semitism. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anybody else who wishes to speak in the audience at this time, or from the audience at this time? Appears to be nobody in the audience. Is anybody on Zoom indicating that they wish to speak during public participation?
There's one individual.
Very
Ms.
good.
Munitz, you're up.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Ken.
Okay. I have a number of comments. I'll go as quickly as I can. Regarding the helipad, which is interesting to see on the agenda, under 376.32, it says any use not identified in the use table is prohibited, blah, blah, blah. Since this is a use that is not permitted in the town, it seems that you would need to create a local law to address where the town board would consider allowing such a use and the minimum lot sizes, setbacks, etc. And if I were a neighbor, I would want it to be tied to a public hearing and a special use permit. So I am presuming that if you want to go forward with this, that you should be looking into a local law to allow the town board to issue special permits for such a use. With respect to the sale of the town property, I spoke at length, and I'd like my comments already submitted, I'm not going to repeat them, against the surplusing of the land to be included as part of the record for your consideration tonight. In addition to my prior comments regarding the alienation of this parkland, I object to the passage of the proposed neg deck resolution for the sale of the open space at 679 New Hempstead Road. The description of the proposed action is not valid, as it does not include the entirety of the action that is being contemplated. The sale of land designated as parkland is subject to a higher level of review, approval, and scrutiny. It is in effect a de facto rezoning of vacant open space property that has been represented to the residents of Ramapo as parkland on town maps. The consideration of the action can't be segmented from the future intended use of the property in this way. And that is not reflected in the documentation that was prepared for you tonight. There absolutely should be a public hearing, and all of the residents within 500 feet should be noticed to participate. And any representations made regarding any planned or future use should be fully divulged and subject to this seeker review process before you make any determinations. It is 21.6 acres of forested areas that make up the backdrop for a large multitude of residents in the area. And I think that everyone should be made aware of what the plans are. And everyone could be, this could be a very welcoming plan, but the nature of how this decision is being made is wrong. So I'm not saying that it is wrong for you to pursue it. I am saying that the way in which this is being pursued is just not lawful. The way in which the seeker is being addressed is not sufficient. I think it's procedurally wrong, and I think it's substantively wrong, and I ask that you table this and actually fix this. With respect to the pilot agreement, I just was curious. I was looking into it. It seemed very, very interesting, but I have not seen or heard of any projects regarding this before tonight. I'd like the town to give some information as to whether there's an application. What's the status? Real quick, I just want to let you know that the entities listed in the resolution don't exist. I think you might have the wrong names. I could not find either Traylom LLC or the Rand.
Very good. Now we'll move on. Does anybody else wish to speak?
That's it, Mr. Supervisor.
And I'll call for a motion to close public
Motion to close.
participation. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles. We have a second to the motion. Second is Councilman Westmandel. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Carried 5-0. Public participation is closed. We'll go to item 2. Public hearing on the introductory local law for reimbursement of consultant fees I think we have Alyssa Slater, yes, our first assistant town attorney. If you could give instructions for us before we start.
All right, this is a local law that would establish a fee schedule for the filing of certain land use applications. The town incurs expenses associated with these land use applications when outside consultants are needed to review them. And this local law would require applicants to have money that would be held in escrow to be used for the reimbursement of the consultant fees. Vouchers would be submitted and the money that was, would come out of those escrow accounts to pay those vouchers. There's a few exhibits that need to be entered into the record. Exhibit A is a copy of the proposed local law. Exhibit B is the notice of the public hearing. Exhibit C is an affidavit of posting from the town clerk, and Exhibit D is the affidavit of publication from the Journal News.
Thank you, Ms. Slater. Any questions for Ms. Slater before we start the hearing? Then at this time, we'll open it up for public input on this proposed local law. Anybody in the audience first wish to speak on this proposed local law? Appears to be nobody. I'll go to the Zoom platform. Is anybody who is present on Zoom, Ms. Munitz is raising her hand, indicating she wishes to speak? So we could let her do so.
Yeah, this is Deborah Munitz of 5 Rose Hill Road. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay. I want to commend you for actually codifying this. I was curious if you could explain why is this local law necessary now, since I was under the impression that these types of procedures were always the case. So if you, before you pass it, it would be edifying for that. It says that I had another question regarding in the past during hearings. I want to make sure that if issues are raised before public hearings and the town board, planning board, and zoning board wish to answer and do not have the information that they need raised by the public to answer questions of the public that are substantive, that they will have the ability to require third-party reviews of applicants' documents by third-party consultants. With respect to reimbursement not being used to offset town general costs, I'm wondering why that provision is in there. It seems that it actually would be reasonable for the town to cover the cost of its own professionals in the review process, because I do believe that there are applicants who come prepared with good plans that don't require multiple reviews, and they should be rewarded. And those who come who are less prepared and are just misusing our town professionals should pay the brunt, because then the town has to hire more town professionals in addition to the consultants. With respect to who is setting these things, I'm wondering why the building department is doing this. What happened to the director of planning and zoning? Do we even have a director of planning and zoning anymore, and why not? It seems that there might be a conflict because the ZBA is generally reviewing appeals of the building inspector decision. So it seems kind of conflictive to have the building inspector be setting these kinds of review fees. I'm wondering why the consultants are being given 60 days to submit invoices instead of doing so monthly, which is professional and usual. In terms of the phrase, the date the final action is filed in section 122.5, there is no definition. And I think this is important because the filing of a planning board approval for subdivision and site plan is generally actually not final the majority of the time. Too often filed approvals for subdivisions and site plans are conditioned on all sorts of reviews, and this can go on for several years. And during those review processes, sometimes there are changes that are made, and there are provisions in the town code to allow for changes even without public hearings, but with the review of town professionals. And so it's really important that you figure out what that means. And I suggest that the final signing of the site plans and final signing of the subdivisions be considered a final action and not the actual submission to the town clerk of a planning board approval. With respect to the voucher invoice, you have two different sections. I don't know what the difference is. You have invoices in one section and vouchers in another. And it's unclear who reviews it. Later in 122.7, it states the town board reviews the vouchers, but surely that's not the main review. It seems that there could be a little bit more cleanup in these sections 122, 5, 6, and 7. And the timetable for the town's review of vouchers and the applicant's review of vouchers should be tied together so that you don't have the town reviewing and approving vouchers prior to the deadline for the written opposition by the applicant. Finally, I'm wondering why there is a limitation on the pre-application reviews to type 1 actions. Frequently, unlisted actions can be the most complex actions that come before the board, and I think that limitation should not be there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else on the Zoom platform who wishes to speak about this issue?
Yes.
Susan Shapiro.
Very good. We'll give her the opportunity to do so.
Good evening. I'm just here to say that I support everything Ms. Munitz has just said. And
I'm sorry. Could you just, for the record, state your name and address, please?
Susan Shapiro, 34 Scenic Drive, Suffern, New York.
Thank you so much.
I would like to state for the record that I believe that this board should be the ones asking the question that Ms. Munitz is asking. And it should be, this is a really important, making law is a really important part of the job, and setting up these kinds of situations. So I'm concerned, and I ask that you take the time to do the proper review when you're approving projects, when you're enacting regulations, and making these kinds of decisions. We don't want to be continuing to litigate against you and your decisions. We want to work with you. We want to make it so that the town isn't wasting money on litigation. I don't want to keep doing these lawsuits, honestly. I'd like us all to work together to try to really find a way that you're following the proper procedures so that, and you're making rational, reasonable decisions that aren't biased, that help everybody in the community. And I really think it's time for that. It's why do we have to be litigating all the time? Because you're not taking the time to really look and make these hard decisions. Other towns do. Other towns do. Most towns do. That's the standard. So I'm asking you, please abide by the laws of New York State and the laws of the United States and follow the standard. Take your time. Do the proper reviews. That's all. Thank you. And not only on this matter, I have to say my hand was raised on the other matter and before you close the public hearing. So I ask that you reopen the public hearing because I had my hand raised and I was not called. So thank you.
Well, it wasn't a public hearing. It was just a public comment period.
Okay.
I don't think
I'd ask you to reopen the public comment period and allow me to submit written comments.
You're always free to submit anything you'd like in writing. That's fine. Any comments from the public about this matter that's on for public hearing, the introductory local law reimbursement of consultant fees?
Mr. Supervisor, as was the case before, there are currently no hands raised.
Very good. Then I'll call for a motion to close the public hearing. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded Councilman Weissmandl. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining by a vote of 5-0. The public hearing is hereby closed. Let's discuss the proposed local law. First, does anybody have any questions for our attorney about what we just had the hearing? I was wondering, what is this? Ms. Slater, could you address that issue? The question by the councilman was, how does this differ from what we currently have in place?
So this just sets a more formal guideline than what we have right now. It really just lays out in detail the fees, the reviews, the submission of vouchers, the remedies, the how much is in these how much is to be held in the escrow accounts, how to replenish them. So it just really formalizes and gives us a lot more detail and sort of protects the applicants as well as the town much better than what we currently have in place.
Do we currently have a local law or just a
there's no local law. There's just a procedure that there's money that is held in escrow, and these types of there are reimbursements, but there's no local law currently in place.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor. So the fact that Ms. Slater was not here for prior administrations, we have no authority to collect from anybody else other than engineering this later, if I'm correct. We only had it, the procedure, and I believe in our spider, is that we could only collect for engineering. And now we find that we need legal advice for specific projects. And the consideration was, why should everybody have to pay for an individual developer's legal expenses and other such things?
And just by the history to this proposed law, we had asked our outside land use counsel, Ben Gailey, to draft an appropriate local law to get reimbursed for legal expenses as well as engineering and planning. And this is what he was recommending that we adopt.
Correct. And it's specific. It's more than just a fee, because you never know, Mr. Supervisor. We can only guess what a fee would be, but here we're going to be able to actually bill for what the project takes out of our professionals' time.
Correct.
And we figured that was the fairest way to move forward. But again, it was historic. The town did take an enormous amount of time to consider this. And this goes back to even prior administrations considering it. And Ms. Slater, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just
No, that's perfectly fine. I appreciate it.
No history.
correct. So and don't call me Alan Berman,
No.
please. Okay.
Any other questions from the board before we call for a vote on this item?
No.
We have a motion to approve, seconded by Councilman Nuno. Let's have any discussion on the motion. Anybody wish to discuss? Then I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
No, I think it's roll. Isn't this roll?
I don't think so.
It's a local law.
Yeah, for a local law, you should do the roll call on this.
Fine, then we'll do a roll call vote.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilman Wanderno? Councilman Rossman?
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Charles?
Yes.
Supervisor Spence?
Yes, so it carries by a vote of 5-0. Thank you. So Ms. Slater, your office and Ms. Usher, your office will handle the appropriate notifications to the Department of State and other agencies to put this into effect. Thank you. We'll go now to item 3, acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting held April 27th, 2022. Councilman Nuno makes a motion. Deputy Supervisor Charles seconds it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried by a vote of 5-0. The minutes are hereby adopted. We'll go to item 4, Town Attorney A, acceptance of an easement for 16-mile drive. We'll go back to Ms. Slater for that.
All right, this is acceptance of a drainage easement at 16 Ronald Drive. Our engineer is requiring it. And on the provided map, it is highlighted in orange. We would recommend acceptance.
Questions? Motion by who's making the motion? Deputy Supervisor Charles is making the motion, and Councilman Nuno is seconding it. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? That carries 5-0. Item B.
This is an extension of agreement for the maintenance of the elevators at Clover Park. Last meeting, we actually had this on to extend the agreement with ThyssenKrupp for the JTS Center, and the stadium was just inadvertently missed in that resolution. So this would be, they'd be doing the maintenance on our elevators for $6,423.60 per year. And again, this is just an extension of a previous agreement.
Same rate as past years?
Same rate as past year?
Say that again?
Is that the same rate as last year?
I believe so.
Okay.
Great. And we just put on because we wanted to say ThyssenKrupp again.
Yes.
And actually, Mr. Supervisor, it probably should have been under purchasing. I'm not sure how
That's
it ended
true.
up on the attorney's office,
Well,
but
we're gonna take it off the agenda.
yeah, take it off the
Put it
agenda
on.
immediately. Tell them they have to maintain the elevators
For free.
themselves.
I have a feeling the elevator will not be working. ThyssenKrupp.
Michelle, you're going to be maintaining the elevators.
Do we have a motion to approve? Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, second, Councilman Nuno. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Carried 5-0 to extend the agreement with ThyssenKrupp Elevator Corporation. Move on to item C, amendment of a prior resolution.
All right, this is an amendment of a prior resolution. The town gives out grants to various agencies. The Catholic Charities of Rockland County has been added to that list. We'll be giving them a $3,000 grant for community services.
I could do this was supposed to be on when we did the list at the beginning of the year. I had asked to put it on, and by oversight, it wasn't included. It's a very worthwhile organization that helps people, all backgrounds, whether they need shelter, food, or any emergencies. They help prevent people from getting addicted by coming up with rent payments. They feed the hungry, and they're a very worthwhile organization. So I think sorry? No, this would be their first year. They are based in Haverstraw, but they help many people in the town of Ramapo, Valley. Yeah, they help everybody. They're a phenomenal organization. So I recommend that you do this. Deputy Supervisor Charles makes a motion. Councilman Nunu seconds it. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Carried 4-0. Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Supervisor, I just want to add, these are contract agencies,
Right.
not grants. The town's not
That's
allowed to give out grants.
We
Again, it's
contract with them. They
historic,
provide
a
services.
service that we don't provide.
Right, in this case, emergency shelter and aid.
Correct, just to clarify the record.
That's correct. Thank you for clarifying that. We'll go on to item E. And I'm sorry, approval of the Rockland Conservation and Service Corps workers.
All right, so the town is eligible to be assigned workers from the Rockland County Conservation Corps. It's a program, it's a division of the Rockland County Youth Bureau. DPW has requested 2 workers at a rate of $2,200 per worker. We will be paying that. We've done this for several years and just wish to continue to serve as a host site this coming summer.
Thank you, Ms. Slater. If anybody has any questions about the specifics of the program, Mike Sadowski is present on the Zoom. You can ask him, or if not, if we're prepared to take a vote to approve. Motion to approve, Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded. Councilman Rossman, discussion, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Carried 5-0. Now go to item E, approval of a pilot agreement.
This Dylan Harris from Lewis and Greer should be on as our outside counsel that prepared this and has been working on it. I think he's on tonight to discuss it with the board.
You promote Dylan to be a panelist, and we'll discuss it with him. Dylan is our attorney on this and other tax matters.
Dylan, go ahead, unmute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. It's good to see all of you again. What we're looking at here is getting authority for the supervisor to sign a payment in lieu of tax agreement or pilot agreement for the property to answer the question from public comment period. It's at 150 Sister Servants Lane in Sloatsburg. That's the actual address. This is going to be a luxury health and wellness retreat. The company has another one in California that's very, very highly rated. So this was induced by the Rockland County IDA on January 20th, 2022. They received sales tax, mortgage tax, and then the ability to negotiate pilot agreement with the school district and town. So over the last handful of months with the assessor's office and school district's attorney, we've been negotiating with the actual owner here. And it's important to note for this property that it has been exempt for many, many years. So it's basically a net positive to have this property coming back on the rolls. And speaking to the the school district's attorney, he basically noted that they're going to be voting on this next week, and it's, the board is positive with the project.
I can give a little bit of the background to the project as well. I'm familiar with it and I've visited the site on several occasions. The property, as Dylan has said, is currently tax exempt. It's a large parcel owned by the Sister Servants of Mary, which is an order of Ukrainian Catholic nuns. And they've subdivided the property. They currently have a nursing home and assisted living center at that site, which they will continue to maintain with the proceeds from the sale. But what's significant about the sale, the property contains a mansion that was built, I think it was either 1901 or 1904. It was the home of the daughter of J.P. Morgan, the famous financier of the Gilded Era, and she was married to the grandson of Alexander Hamilton, the founding father. And They resided there. It was it's a magnificent house that has been used as a retreat by the sister servants, and they no longer need it. And the entity that is buying it, as Dylan said, operates a similar site in California. It's a high-end retreat where people go and stay several days, and they engage, I shouldn't say indulge, because it's not an indulgence. They wake up at 5 in the morning, they go hike on the property, they do meditation, other spiritual activities, and it's a spa environment. So there are many advantages to, I believe, this property being used in this way. One is that the plan is to preserve a historic mansion on the site and renovate it and use that as the facility for the people to stay in. And at the same time, the many acres of beautiful grounds will be protected and preserved in its current condition. The site will go from being tax exempt to being tax producing, to generating, to being arrayable for the town. So it's a positive. In addition, it should result in the creation of some amount of jobs, and it will bring visitors from around the country to the town of Ramapo and that part of the town of Ramapo in particular.
Is this a pilot that goes tax? Yeah.
Well, the pilot is that we agree in advance that instead of taxes, there are certain payments made every year. There's a schedule of payments in the backup. So it would not be exempt. I'm going to ask Dylan to maybe more clearly clarify that at this point, but it would go from being exempt, which it is now, to being, I don't know if tax is the right word, but being making payments for a period of time. The period of time, 10 years. And you can see the schedule. That's a for-profit. It is a for-profit entity. And if you read, there's a memo from Dylan to our assessor, Scott Shedler, which is provided as well to the board, which talks about the benefit to the town of this settlement. So I'm going to ask Dylan, Mr. Harris, if you can just clean up on the comments I just gave to clarify some of the items about exemptions and taxes.
Sure. Yeah. So technically, the property will be exempt, but rather than receiving taxes, the owner will pay to county, town, and school district payments in lieu of taxes, which will be based on assessments, or we'll call them pilot assessments, for each of the 10 years in which the pilot will be operative. However, the property owner will have to pay special district taxes based on the actual assessment. So that's kind of the nuance of it. So, you know, things like if there's water charges, sewer, anything like that will be paid as if, you know, there wasn't a pilot agreement.
I'm not following. Are they paying taxes or they're not paying taxes?
Right now, no.
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 And they're going to be paying, I guess, on year 3 at 9% discount, 80% discount. That's the way I'm reading it.
Yes. Right.
Okay. And it's a for-profit?
That's right.
You mentioned you had a conversation with the Suffolk School Board. Did you hear which direction they were leaning in regards to this?
In speaking to their counsel, he says from his discussions with the superintendent and board, they're positive. He's confident. I don't want to speak for him and say that they're going to approve it, because obviously we don't know that yet, but they are positive from everything I've heard. And their attorney does believe that they will be voting yes to this.
Is this a common practice for a for-profit entity?
Yes, in fact, I think many, if not, well, by definition, yes.
So this was a community development project?
This is an economic, could be considered an economic development project. Projects that are not by not-for-profits would normally be tax exempt and wouldn't need a pilot. A pilot, and again, I'm asking Dylan to jump in if I'm going out of bounds here and giving something out that's inaccurate, but pilots are for economic development, and they are for businesses, for housing in certain cases, for businesses.
I think we're
That's correct. And a big part is that the IDA, the Industrial Development Agency in each county, here Rockland County, will induce these projects to spur economic growth, job growth, things of that nature, bringing people in to spend money, which will, you know, get taxed, sales tax and things of that nature. You know, just bring people to the areas, the purpose of these agreements.
second to be bringing in?
I don't know if they know that even yet. And I don't know if it necessarily be many employers. It's not going to be, they're going to have maybe 40 guests at a time. It's not going to be a large, you know, it's not a Marriott or something, but it's.
It's also an incentive for them to
Right.
come here, because we want to attract businesses. And given the climate that we are, like kind of recession, maybe kind of sort of at low recession or thereabouts, it gives the person who wants to come incentive to come here.
And it's taking a property that is currently not on the tax rolls
Right.
and will be.
Right.
That's not, I don't think it's criteria, it has to be a bonus. The Empire State Non-Development Board gives pilots common, it's part of their incentive packages to get businesses to invest in a certain area.
Certain areas, right. So
If they produce the proper documentation, it shows in order for them to bring this business to this area, they need this system. It's count practice. Municipalities, it's private. So I think he's saying that in this case, I don't think it's a prerequisite. Also, this comes off the.
Right. It's another benefit. It's a bonus.
I don't think it's a prerequisite.
No, it's not. It's not. I think it's just, I see it as a benefit in addition to the incentive. It's another benefit that it will be coming off the tax rolls.
If
On the
they
tax
sell,
rolls.
if they sell, does the pilot go away with that?
I believe the pilot runs with the, no, it doesn't run, it's the opposite. They have to.
Goes with the end project.
Yeah, it goes in the project. So if they sell it, it loses the pilot.
If they sell the property,
If they
sell the whole,
maintain.
it stays where it is. They take over the LLC, rent the structure.
Yeah, I don't think that
I
changes.
think that-
No, only if they
close
say
down.
tomorrow, we're gonna put a wall there.
Right.
Right, a nursing home or mall or whatever. Right, Dylan, would that be correct?
Yeah, so it's based on the actual usage agreed here too. And, you know, anytime we draft these pilots, we do make sure there is that exit language to ensure if the use, you know, turns into something else in that nature that, you know, the town school district can back out of it.
Any more questions for Dylan?
Yeah, the sister service section, that's still gonna be taxed.
That will still maintain, that I expect will remain tax exempt if they continue to use it. Yeah, I don't know if they've applied yet or not, but they would need to subdivide.
How big is the total property?
See if Dylan can answer.
I know this segment, I believe, is going to be 115 acres, and I think the sisters are holding on to maybe 5. So I want to say it's 125 acres. And just a note on the sale, it's still being worked out. I don't know that it's been finalized yet. They're in contract, so they probably still will have to go through some form of the actual planning process and all of that.
If it doesn't go through, does the pilot get pulled? Is this contingent on this?
It's contingent on this use.
From this?
Right, this subdivision, this use. I was told today by somebody that they expect the closing to occur sometime over the summer.
When does the pilot?
When would it start, the pilot? That would start maybe next year? Or
Year 1, I guess.
The pilot would go in effect when the project is technically completed and they have a CO. So I think here, once they close, they're hoping to, I want to say the exposure times maybe 6 months to a year, if I remember correctly, as far as how soon they're hoping to revamp the facility.
what happens in year 1? Are they taxed or assessed and taxed, or is it held in advance until the pilot starts?
So year 1 of the pilot, they would have the pilot payments that they would be paying. Typically in negotiating the agreement is when they're going to tell us, hey, it's going to take us a year. So for let's say 2023 roll, the next roll coming up, where we're going to be in construction, we would place a value on it for that, what's actually there. And then once they have the CO and the project is built and completed, then we would start in year 1 of the pilot payments.
The length of time of this pilot, is that the norm? Is it usually
10
20
years.
years? It says 20.
No, it's 10, yeah.
Yeah, so it's 10 years. They initially came to us asking for 20 years, so we were able to negotiate down to 10. So that's a reasonable amount of time in pilots typically. I mean, quite often you'll see anywhere ranging from maybe 5 to 20.
Very good. I'll call for a motion then. Motion to approve Deputy Supervisor Charles. Do we have a second? Seconded by Councilman Rossman. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstaining? Carried by vote of 5-0. Thank you very much, Dylan. We appreciate your guidance on this.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
Good night. We'll go now to exhibit, agenda item 4F, Ms. Slater.
This is acceptance of a retroactive application for a tax exemption. The Community Outreach Center recently purchased and was approved to, or received at least some of their preliminary approvals to expand the outreach center. So this would give a retroactive exemption for the 2021 and 22 property taxes. So in order for them to get that, I'm sorry.
They go to the state. Right. In other words,
the town has to act first.
But we have to say we would permit it, we would grant it.
Correct, before it would actually go into effect. The town is the first step.
Do we have a motion? Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Lawson to approve. Discussion. Favor, aye. Opposed, abstaining, carried 5-0. Go to item G, FJ Rella and Company.
This is FJ Rella would be retained to assist the town attorney's office in the defense of SCAR proceedings that are challenging the town assessment rolls at a fee of $50 per hour. Total fee would not exceed $40,000 per year.
And I'm sorry, your office and the assessor as well are recommending that we retain FJ Rella and Company.
Correct.
No, they've done it before for us with the SCARs. That's the small claims assessment review. If you have like one of the family owner occupied house, you do a simplified.
Yeah, we don't have him for that.
Yeah, this is just the SCAR. He's done this for.
He's been here 10 years.
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah, every year. So I'll call for a motion to retain Rella. Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded, Councilman Weissman, seconded, or yes. Second, Councilman Weissman. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Carried 5-0. Go to item H.
This is the authorization to retain appraiser Bob Sterling. There's pending litigation, and we are asking to retain him to value the investment in the real property that's at issue. I would just like to point out that in the third paragraph, there's an extra zero in the 7,500. It says a cost not to exceed 7,500, but there's 3 zeros after that. So one of those zeros just has to go.
This is why I think we should look up what she said.
This is for, we have a lawsuit pending, and this is to evaluate the value of property in that lawsuit. It's a relevant issue.
Right, and the fee for that would not exceed the 7,500, and the additional services would be charged at $200 per hour.
Very good. If there's no questions from Ms. Slater, I'll call for a motion. Motion moved by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second Councilman Grossman. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? That carries 5-0. Go to item I, which I think is a related request.
This is related. This is to retain Analytical Economic Associates to, again, determine various values of the property that's at issue in that pending litigation. Again, there's the same issue with this resolution. In the third paragraph, there's an extra zero in 7,500. So the calculations and the testimony that they would provide to the town would not exceed $7,500, and there'd be an hourly rate of $475 for all additional services that would be required.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Motion. Deputy Supervisor, second Councilman Rossman. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Anyone abstaining? That carries 5-0. And thank you, Ms. Slater.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 5, the purchasing agenda. We'll go to Ms. Martell, Purchasing Director.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. As we've discussed previously, the turf at the JTS Center is in need of updating and replacement. We have a Sourcewell Corporation that has done this before with us, and we're going to ask that you approve this. The funds come out of our Parks and Recreation funding.
Any questions for Ms. Martell about this?
What is the problem?
Is
Useful life is,
basically
people can get hurt on it.
Can't repair it?
No,
no. It's beyond its lifetime.
And the people who are paying right now to be on there, are they helpful in this?
yeah, we're gonna up, obviously, when Michelle does an analysis.
How much are they paying right now?
For what, the use of the fields?
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me. But
I'm here.
There she is.
What is the lifespan?
10 years. Michelle, you want to tell them how much income we bring in from the turf field?
Yes, yeah. I mean, this year probably will be one of our highest years because of COVID, and we've had a lot of the schools come and use it for their gym during the day. Some of the religious schools during the day, and in the high schools in the afternoon, and the youth leagues in the evening. So we've been booked nonstop. But we'll average between $150,000 to $200,000 a year in rentals fees.
So in 4 years,
every group pays. Local groups obviously pay less, and at night we charge more for lighting. So the average hourly rate is anywhere from $60 an hour to $125 an hour.
And I think, Michelle, you had experts come in to see if it could be repaired, and it was determined that it had to be replaced.
Yes, the lifeline is down. We have more rubber on the field than we do turf. We got over 10 years out of it, and it's used 9, if not 11 months out of the year when there's no snow. So, we have a lot of groups that use it throughout the entire community, and it's just a value to this community by all means.
Same year, we're billing at over 100, what did you say, 100, 200,000 a year?
Yeah. And we can relook at those fees as well for next year moving forward, Michelle.
Is there any
yes, of course,
for something like this? Do we do stuff like that?
The only sponsorship, I mean, we could look at putting, sponsorships around that area. We never did that before. We certainly could. I don't think Michelle would object to that in any way.
No, anybody that wants to sponsor, by all means. Just as a town, it's not something that we have typically done, but there's definitely ways I'm sure we can do it legally. And if we look into it, by all means, we can sell spots on the fence.
All right, great. Right, I'll call for a motion to approve. Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Rossman. Discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? My vote 5-0, that carries. Go to item B, acceptance of a bid for the purchase of a new or used transit van. You can
Thank
explain
you.
that to us.
Certainly. So we went out to bid for this. It is used with very low mileage on it. As everybody knows, there are no vehicles out there. The town has no enclosed vehicle, which we needed during COVID and moving forward when we need to move something from point A to point B. If it's raining, we have no ability to do that. After much research and again, going out for bid, I'm asking you to accept this as listed in the reservation. What? Cargo van.
All our other vehicles are like open pickup trucks.
Correct. We're actually trying to get a truck with a lift gate. We haven't been able to do that either yet. We have a lot of times, often. I'll explain why. If we need to move barriers from place to place internally for a larger truck, if we need to, when Yitzi has to pick up a variety of items and we have to get it here, we constantly have use, especially with the Office of Emergency Preparedness and COVID response kits, distributing them. We've needed to go to the county and pick things up. We have to wait till it stops raining in order to be able to do that. And so we're requesting, we went out to bid for it because this is all that we could find. And we've had Brian Spillman look into it as well to make sure that it was a good pricing. And we're asking you to accept the bid.
This is going to be a town vehicle or police vehicle?
Town.
Are we financing it?
No, we're buying it. We have
one in the past?
no.
I'll call for a motion to approve. Motion, Councilor Rossman, seconded Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion. All in favor, aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Carries by a vote of 5-0. And now let's go to C, authorization for establishment or improvement of a helipad.
I'm not sure how this got onto mine, but I will explain what it is. So this was very far down the path, the helipad. Private individuals do have the right to put something like this on their property. There's state code and reference to it. Counsel for the individual that's looking to do it had come to us to say this is what needed to be done. We checked with our own counsel. All you're doing here is saying that you would like the town is asking that I think it's the DOT
Commissioner of Transportation.
look into whether or not this is an appropriate for this. And then whatever other licensing is done is through the FAA. And in terms of neighbors, the horses are not going to complain. That's the next door is the equestrian center, and it's marshland on the other side. Maybe there's further up the road one, but I don't believe that we have the we don't have the ability to currently legislate this, other than to pass this along as was asked and requested by a resident of this town.
And then I think, as you said, it goes to the Commissioner of Transportation for New York State, and the commissioner makes the determination as to whether or not it meets the Transportation Department's standards.
That's the transportation. Who represents the town's interests? Zoning issue or something like that. You know, but all of that. I know nothing about helicopters. Drones are that's
right. So one of the reasons. So MJ met with them, the building department met with them. Yeah, that's true when and if it goes forward, but first this is step one.
Well, step one, this is our.
Right, does it come back to us if the Commissioner of Transportation says there's no objection on their part?
Well, they have to file a building permit.
That doesn't come back to us.
Right. You're agreeing to allow a private individual to land a helicopter on their private piece of land, which technically I don't think you'd have very much option of if they simply landed on their front lawn, if they had the space. You need 100 by, yeah, you need 100 by 100 spot to do it.
How large is this property that's landing on?
Several acres.
Yeah.
You know, like
most of the properties there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is literally right next door to the equestrian center.
We put it off 2 weeks. We get a memo from MJ. So.
Sure.
I mean, just need to know it's like questions.
What is everybody's thoughts about this?
So Ira Emanuel represents them. I'll certainly get Ira Emanuel to write a letter. No problem.
Okay.
I like some of the downside.
Yeah, MJ, you just said, MJ and, yeah, MJ and, yeah, he has. That's how we got to where we were here.
I believe one of the issues that the Transportation Department has to look at in determining whether it meets their standards is whether there'll be any negative impact on the surrounding property. So, what?
Our passing it on, saying we're okay.
We're okay. We don't have, well, we have no local offices. You can't. So
I know we'll be fine.
Right.
I would at least want to rock.
I think that we should make that a condition.
So
that's why you put it next to the horses. That shows you're not coming.
I'm not coming out anyway.
All right, so why don't we table this for 2 weeks? We'll get a memo from the individual's counsel as well as from our engineer. It's for his own use. It's not right.
It's not going to be used very often.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on. We'll stay with you, Ms. Montello, but we'll shift into item 6, personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. We're asking you to appoint as permanent longtime employee from provisional custodian 3 to a permanent under the civil service list 21138, Bobby Dawson, Robert Dawson.
Bobby has been here, as I said, a long time, and he's an outstanding part of the Ramapo team. He's got a can-do attitude and just really good at what he does, and always eager to do the best he can for the town. We have a motion, Councilman Washington, Councilman second by Deputy Supervisor Charles. All in favor, aye. Anyone opposed, anyone abstaining, we unanimously by a vote of 5-0 approve the appointment of Robert Dawson to the position of permanent custodian 3. Congratulations if you're out there watching, Robert, and we are happy to be able to make this appointment permanent. Thank you. Move on to item B, appointment of a personnel assistant, not as someone earlier thought today, a personal assistant.
Right. So unfortunately, Mr. Supervisor, I'm not, you're not appointing a personal assistant to me, but it's a personnel assistant. All that. Yeah. So she has a different title, and this will put her in the appropriate title. It's a 5% differential in the salary. I am making this recommendation. Tara has been an outstanding employee. When we went through our, FEMA processing, even though it wasn't within her purview, she did it. What? Okay. Okay.
Second. We have a motion by Councilman Westmill, a second by Deputy Supervisor Charles. We adopt the comments of Ms. Montalvo in favor of Ms. Wanamaker. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Again, unanimously carried 5-0. Congratulations and well deserved to Tara. We'll go on to item C, appoint payroll clerk for the finance department.
So, Mr. Supervisor, as you and the town board are aware, we had some recommendations that were made to us by Alvarez and Marsala. This continues with that process, and we're asking you to appoint Anna Milovich as a probationary payroll clerk in the finance department.
She knew.
Yes.
How many people do payroll right now?
1.5.
So this will give us 2.5.
Right. It's and again, the 2.5, the 1. What? She's going to she's reporting to myself, John, and John, because she's also going to float in other areas. So she's going to learn the personnel system, the purchase. No, she's new to the town. And she came off a civil service list because those are those types of positions. And
what's probation? 6 months?
Yes, and she will be reviewed.
Very good. We have a motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Rossman to approve. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Standing carried 5-0. We welcome Anna Milovich to the town of Ramapo and congratulate you. We'll move on now to item D, reinstatement of part-time police radio dispatcher.
So when Pete Mayer started here, he was about 12 years old. Am I right? You probably did. He worked in throughout the town. Right. Pete was an outstanding employee of the town. I believe it was a police officer in Spring Valley and a dispatcher here. And as the town board is aware, we can always use more dispatchers. So we're asking him to come back and reinstate him as a part-time police officer radio dispatcher CAD at the bargain rate of $31.60.
He had recently retired. He retired about a month or so ago.
Correct.
I don't know. Does he need a waiver?
I don't think he's that old.
Oh, okay.
Not that
old. Yeah. Well, he was 12 when he started.
Right.
So 32.
If he's online listening to me, I might get myself into trouble.
You may not get a police dispatch.
Right. Let's hope I never do.
Do we have bilingual dispatch?
I'm sorry?
Bilingual
Yes,
dispatch.
yes, we do.
Which
We
one?
have Spanish speaking.
Great.
They also have, the dispatchers also have a language line.
We have a considered
Yeah, we have considered it, and at one point we, I think we put out something, and I don't know that anybody took it.
Yeah, not sure, but this looks like
Right.
different languages.
Very good. I'll call for a motion to reinstate Peter Mayer as a part-time police radio dispatcher. Motion is made by Councilman Rossman, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Carried by a vote of 5-0. We welcome back Dispatcher Mayor. Your retirement was very short.
We'll take his retirement plaque back.
We'll take the plaque back. Half of it back because he's partly retired. We'll move on now to item E, establish 2 senior recreation leader positions in Parks and Recreation.
So, Mr. Supervisor, this is something that we had discussed during the budget. These 2 individuals that in the minute you're going to be, I hope, putting into these positions have been longtime employees. The roles that they play are actually senior recreation leaders. And first we need to establish the 2 full-time positions. They're in currently full-time positions.
What is the current position?
Rec leader. Or other such, something very close to that.
You want to give Michelle?
If she wants to, if she
Yes,
will.
I'm here. They were hired about 15 years ago and as rec leaders. They've been in that same title for 15 years. They've been with us for 16 years, and they basically run the entire JTS center, from staffing to equipment to programming, single-handedly between the 2 of them. For a 7-day-a-week operation, they've been doing this job as senior rec leader probably for the past 8 years, and they've been on the test. They're on the list, and they're more than deserving. Loyal members of this community, both residents of the community. Michael is not online. Megan is. Michael's actually having his 2nd child right now. His wife is in the hospital. So, but Megan is on, if you have any comments.
No, we don't have comments.
Let's start first with resolution to establish the positions. We have a motion to approve. Motion, Councilman Grossman.
5% more is what it goes up.
Job description.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well,
they're-
it's more responsibility, right?
No. They've been doing
Oh, they've been
more
doing the work.
space responsibility. We would have been paying a 5% differential to them anyway. This actually puts them in the right place on a list so that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing according to civil service.
We have a motion by Councilman Rossman, second by Deputy Supervisor Charles. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Carried 5-0. We'll go to the next resolution.
So I'm going to ask that now that we have these 2 positions, which are now vacant, I'm going to ask you to appoint Megan Phillips and Michael Leslie to senior recreation leaders off of the civil service list, effective the 14th, at annual salary of $99,322.
Do we have a motion to that effect? Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, second, Councilman Rossman. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? By unanimous vote of 5-0, we hereby appoint Michelle Phillips and Michael Leslie to the positions as senior recreation leaders. We congratulate you on this promotion. Yes, and the bigger congratulations to Michael Leslie on your baby. We wish you much luck and happiness. And well, you may not be getting a lot of sleep. That's true. But again, I was going to say you're already part of a Ramapo family, and now your family has expanded. So we are very happy to do this today. We'll move on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fantasca. We'll move on to item 7, general matters. Number 1 is to authorize police officers Lynch and Navarro to attend the NASRO conference. NASRO is chief. That's the
National Association of School Resource.
Oh, of course, that makes sense. Motion, Councilman Weisman, second, Deputy Supervisor Charles. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Hereby approved 5-0. Go to item 2, which is to amend our 2022 budget to reflect that we received $5,000 from the County of Rockland Stop DWI program to be used for DWI overtime patrols. So this is a very positive thing. Motion, Deputy Supervisor. It is. It goes to police budget. This funds overtime for reimburses us for overtime that was spent. Deputy Supervisor Charles made the motion. Councilman Rossman seconded. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Carried 5-0. Item 3, authorize Sergeant Samarone to attend IACA, International Association of Crime Analyst Training, to be held in Chicago, August 21st to 27th. Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded, Councilman Rossman. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Carried 5-0. We'll go now to item 4, authorization for Officer Hegley to attend the scales testing and in Syracuse, and that is for the enforcement of some of the vehicle and traffic laws that pertain to commercial trucking. Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded, Councilman Rossman. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Carried 5-0. We'll go to item 5, which is sale of property New Hampstead Road. 2 weeks ago, we declared surplus. We have on tonight a resolution to enter into a contract with the Village of New Hampstead and to make a finding pursuant to SEQA. The recommendation of our engineer consultant, Joe Bianchi, is that we adopt a negative declaration pursuant to SEQA. And do we have Mr. Yeager on?
Yes.
Oh, there he is. Let's see. Mr. Yeager, can you just fill us in on this matter?
Yes, this is the second part, and the third part of the sale of this property to the village. The board already passed declaring the property surplus, which is the first step. Second step will be to declare it that in terms of SEQA, that we've filled out all the necessary forms, and our consultants, MJ, have filled out those forms. And then the third part is authorizing you, Mr. Supervisor, to sign the contract in a form approved by the town attorney's office. I am in the midst of negotiating just some minor issues, including we're going to end up including some sort of easement agreement because there is a sewer line that runs on the property that's already been marked out by our DPW, and we will be taking care of that at some point in the future. And there will be an easement on the property ultimately to us in order to allow our personnel to care for the sewer line that runs through the property.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me just ask you to, I think we discussed this last time, but I'll ask you to briefly clarify again. Have you reviewed this and made a determination as to whether this property is in any way parkland, dedicated parkland that cannot be sold without going through the alienation process?
No, with some work, excellent work by our town assessor's office and the town clerk's office, I discovered that the original deed that transferred the property from the private owners to the town actually states that the transfer is for general municipal purposes, and it is not parkland according to that deed.
Thank you. And to your knowledge, there's nothing otherwise indicating there was any express or implied dedication that this property was parkland.
I have not seen anything that indicates that that's in fact the case.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Well, at this time, I'll ask if anyone has any questions. If not, we have a motion to approve by Deputy Supervisor Strauss. Councilman?
Mr. Yeager, what protection or restrictions protect I'm reading the memo, it says that they're going to be making a park, a village park.
I'm sorry, you're going in and out and I can't hear you. Can somebody please repeat the question?
The question is, what restrictions will be put in place to ensure that the village, once they purchase it, will use it for the use intended, which is as represented as the village park, among other purposes?
The property, my understanding is that the property would ultimately be divided into 3 parts. So the entire property will not be parkland, but there will be in the contract language to the extent that the part that's not used by the village and the town, and I'm sorry, by the village and anybody else that ends up with part of the property, that will be able to be used for whatever purpose, but the remainder, which is plus or minus 16 acres, will be used for parkland.
Yeah, he's asking whether you're putting restrictions to that.
I think that could be in the contract.
I think it is.
Yes.
No, right, because it would have to survive the contract. So it would have
correct.
To be form of a restricted covenant in the deed. But that's something that at the time of the closing, we'll make sure that that's in there.
Does this come back to the board?
I don't believe it would. I think, no, we would vote on it tonight to get 30-day referendum period, and then I will be authorized to sign a contract in the form approved by the town attorney's office.
And this has been in the making for quite some time.
I'm gonna make a motion. With this, with the caveat that because some form of restriction on the park part. Park actually, yeah.
Absolutely. And is that also motion to approve the adoption of the negative declaration pursuant to SACRA? Very good. So the motion is to approve the sale subject to an appropriate deed restriction limiting the property to the representative use. That would be the majority of it, to describe as 3 acres, about 16 acres, would be parkland, and to adopt a negative declaration pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. We have a second. Second by Councilman Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, thank you.
Councilman Whitefeather?
Aye.
Councilman Moreno? Councilman Rosman?
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Charles?
Yes.
Supervisor Spence?
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yeager. So we'll work on the contract and the other restrictive language going forward. We will now, we have 2 items of new business that we'll put on the agenda today. We will ask to do a waiver of our 24-hour rule for these items. We have a motion to waive. Councilman Ross makes the motion. Deputy Supervisor Charles seconds it. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Carried 5-0. 24 rules hereby waived. So item 8A, acceptance of proposal.
Why does this come on to the agenda?
I think there was more. You talking about item 1, item A, the GHD. I think there was more of an internal paper shuffle in terms of getting it on the agenda in time to listed before 24 hours.
This has to very specifically do with our CDBG funding, if I'm not mistaken. These are CDBG approved projects, and that's why they're both on there.
Timing is important.
Right.
So we have on Zoom Mike Sadowski.
So they had to be project ready at the time of the submission to the CDBG. You have a committee that meets. It was represented to us. These were shovel ready because that's what they have to be. These were on the boards for several years that completely got, left off as we began, which is why moving forward, we've asked for a sidewalk study to be done so that the board can set the priority of what we want. These 2 that you're about to approve were the ones that we had available to move forward quickly. It's a very short window of time that we had. What? Mike Sadowski is on. You can ask him.
Yeah, why don't we do that? I'm going to ask Mike if you can just give us some of the background.
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Tell them where it is on with these 2 locations.
They're in both projects are in the middle of Muncie. The sidewalks are going to go on both sides of the streets.
France, Elaine and Howard. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
What is the perimeters we are defined from where to where?
Oh, well, it says here for Elaine Place and Howard Drive, it's between Suzanne Place and Ellis Parkway, approximately 1,400 linear feet. And for Francis Place, it's between Howard Drive. No, this might be a mistake. Plans to construct new sidewalks on both sides of Francis Place between Howard Drive. That's not wrong.
That is.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
No, well, it goes between Howard and what's the next one down?
No. That's
Oh,
probably
just a typo.
There's a lake.
Yeah, no, that's a typo. Mike, do you have
water?
Do you have it in front of you, Mike?
I don't have the entire thing in front of me now.
Let me look at it 1 second.
What is shovel ready mean, Mike, as opposed to some of the other areas that are not ready, like?
Right, that we don't have drawings.
So this has drawings?
Why this drawings?
No, in other words, that you had determined that there was a need there previously.
Shovel, you said shovel ready.
Well, it's quasi shovel ready would be the more appropriate. We had to supply CDBG with more than just a name and a place, we had to actually give them paperwork ahead of time. We had to have estimates. We had to have a drawing of sorts. This is more details in terms of it.
It's been a big demand by the residents. I'm sure there's a lot of residents.
Yeah, there was all over.
Yeah,
everybody.
Well, in the past, it was the town board coming up with 10 or 20 different projects. These were the dangling ones that were left there that are ready. Every year, we get to go to CDBG funding, and every year it goes to a separate committee, and they determine it. So the board.
Set this internally and say the public, we're going to do this, and we need to create some kind of fund. There are sizes that we're ready to put in, and there are sizes that should be put in currently some of the residents.
So that's why we're applying for a grant moving forward to do a sidewalk study.
What happens to the people that should be, for example, the projects in the middle of being built on Francis, they're required to put a new sign. Should that money be put into fund towards?
I 1000% agree with you. So we have to create an opportunity to have fund for that. In order to do that, it's a local law, which we've asked our land council to look into. You have that, the same issue with making turning lanes in a variety of different places. So that's all going to be, it's being currently reviewed by Mr. Daly's office, how we make that happen. Money will be put into a fund in order to, move forward and do that. In the meantime, these were, CDBG came out late.
This is the best.
Right. CDBG came out very late. Yeah, this is the grant that
They're
we
gonna
got.
cover all of it?
No, 200,000. Well, we're doing we're doing right. And we were out of CDBG for a long time. So now we're back in CDBG. By us coming back in, it brought $700,000 in funds to the various town projects. Ramapo itself got, I believe, 400,000 of that.
So why don't we take a vote on A, acceptance to proposal for Francis Place. Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, second Councilman Rossman, discussion, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, abstaining, carried 5-0. Now we'll go on to the proposal for the survey for Elaine Place and Howard Drive. Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, second Councilman Rossman, aye. Opposed, abstaining, carried 5-0. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
And next item is adjournment before we adjourn. Sir? What? Oh, okay.
Can I just, I find this Zoom quite annoying. I'd like to recommend this point. Last meeting. Go to the Zoom camera, watching a meeting and listen and participate.
Yeah.
But this is very.
I'm going to join with you on that request because I think we're at the point we should be back in live meetings. We could have, perhaps, as you said, it viewable on Zoom, but we're live. Yeah, it's disorienting, it's disruptive, it's confusing. Anybody disagree? So I'll ask our clerk.
That's
any reason why our next meeting can't be a live meeting?
No, the advertising is strictly on.
We have any public hearings coming up on Watchtower, I think? Was that advertised Zoom?
I'll check.
All right, we'll have to apply whatever it is, but after that, yeah. But I think we're all in agreement. Great, very good. We're all live. Live from Ramapo. It's Wednesday night. Very good. Then I don't think we need to vote on that. We just that's just our consensus. I would just before we adjourn, I'll just remind everybody we do have what I expect we should have a brief Ramapo Local Development Corporation meeting immediately following this meeting. So at this time, I'll call for a motion. Ms. Montel?
I thought you should announce tomorrow evening special events.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. We are, as hopefully many people know, tomorrow is the opening night of the Boulders season for 2022. That's right. The game is at 7 o'clock. We're playing the Sussex County Miners, but most significantly, we're having a special event to honor the late Phil Tuzzi, who passed away about 2 years and a month ago from COVID. And we will be naming the street that the stadium is on, or renaming it Phil Peasy Way in Phil's honor and memory. We will be dedicating the seats that he held as a season ticket holder since the stadium first opened about 12 years ago. We will be dedicating that to Phil, his memory, to his family. We'll be having a ceremony on the field with his wife Alicia and friends of his, starting at 6:45 p.m. So we would urge everyone to be there at 6:45. It'll be about a 10-minute ceremony to recognize and celebrate. So where do we go to? Yeah, well, just I'm not sure the details yet, but we're going to start at 6:45 and to watch it from the stands, and it'll go until the game, and the game will start at 7. So thank you for that. Motion to adjourn by Deputy Supervisor Trell, second Councilman Rossman. Actually, Sarah. All in favor, aye. Any opposed and abstaining, we hereby adjourn. Now we have to sign out and sign back in for the ODC.
Correct.
It is a separate invitation in your
Separate
email.
invitation. Very good. Thank you. Good night.